social engineering for the purposeful production of a preposterous prison population. How's that for conspiracy theory? You're saying what? What conspiracy theory? I don't know what you're talking about. You haven't said anything. I'm about to. I'm about to. I remember in the 90s, they started making it so you couldn't spank your kids. And I remember a story, which is fine, in a sense. Well, you can't beat your kids. I mean, I think of the nuns in St. Mary's. They would have been totally ineffective without being able to spank a kid. But beating a kid, you know, like, you really can't beat the kid. You can't just unleash your rage on them totally. You got to have some sort of holding back, you know. Of course, you're probably upset if you're going to hit the kid to begin with, but that's why you keep doing it till they stop, because it feels good to do it. And then suddenly you're like, well, they stopped. Now what am I going to do? You got to get a dog. You stupid son of a bitch. However you want to look at all this. But my dad told me a story. He was watching my nephews. And, you know, there they are in the early 90s. And my dad, you know, you got to realize how much he held back. He evidently was just trying for discipline. My dad, when we were kids, the belt would come off and that slapping sound, and it was like, oh boy, here we go. And yeah, whoo, he did enough yelling first though. But with my nephew, his grandson, he swatted the one, and the older one says, Grandpa, I'm gonna call the police and tell them about this, tell on you. And according to my dad, he looked at him and said, oh, go ahead. If you call them, they'll come take me away and you'll be left here all alone. See, my dad's pretty sneaky too. And he was like, oh. So I'd heard that story already. Then I moved to San Jose in 95. I get out to San Jose in 95. And they taught me somehow, this is what they said back then, third most lucrative industry in the state of California was the penitentiary system, the prisons, you know. And I'm wondering, why are they deciding now that we can't, you know, do corporal punishment on children anymore? I think they want to fill the prisons up. Just like the good old days. I don't know how much they do it now. I'm just talking, you know. But you look at, I don't know, there was that movie with Eddie Murphy and the other dude, Martin Lawrence, where they worked for the prison, you know. And there was a cut, kickback, all this stuff. And that's why there are so many laws about, you know, contemporary pay and things like that. I don't know. There's a word for it. And putting in bids and all these things. There are laws about this now because they used to, but do they want to get back to that? Do they want just the prisons full so we can keep making cheap products? If they're going to do that, they might as well make prisons Coed. That way a guy can be with his wife. You know, some prisons, you don't want to be, fighting everybody away for your life. You'd be too beat up to fuck her at the end of the night. Like prisons with married people, maybe they could have Coed prisons. That way they wouldn't miss their loved ones and they could just keep working in their slave racket all they want. You know, I don't know if they know they are or not, but I still do believe the happiest slave is the one that knows he's a slave. That's where I'm at. Girls gotta eat, right? All that. It's all form of prostitution. Right up to the place where nobody knows who you are and then you lose your fame. Or you get up to the place where you're still able to show your face, you're making a lot of money, but you're still serving somebody else's purpose. So they quit the beating of children. And the reason this comes up today is because I was out on the road and I was listening to the Howard Stern show, and they're talking about this guy that was the 19-year-old that went in and killed those people in FedEx and then himself. And this may actually be an unusual circumstance because you see all these other people that just killed a bunch of people. They figure there's nothing coming at me after this is done. You know, I'm on the right side. Somebody will let me go. What do you mean he didn't pardon me? I trust him. I still do. Stuff like that. But I say this is maybe one of the old-fashioned killing a bunch of people in a place because they just hated everybody for making them hate themselves. And then this FedEx guy, he killed those people and then he killed himself, just like the olden days. So it may not be one that fits in, except for the fact that really everybody's doing it. That might have been his only chance. He was one of these bronies, I hear. They said, I guess it must be Brother Loves Little Ponies or something. There's a group, and I've got nothing against them. They were talking about it, though. And he was just a quiet, meek guy, I guess. But, you know, this was his chance to be just like everybody else. Could that be it? I don't know. But then Robin said the question and made me go, ooh, there we are, baby. Been waiting for somebody to ask. I've got the answer. I've just been waiting for somebody to ask. It's nativistic thought processes put in between a society of people. All you have to do is have the right question, and the answer is there. That's Aristotle's stuff. That's the way he saw it. But he was talking about as an individual. But as a society, it really does relate. Hopefully you can use some rational thought processes and in the way you come to your decision on how to act with that. But she said, Robin Quivers asked, she said, why is it that all these young people are killing people? What is happening in society? And I said, God, I'll tell you what's happening in society. Okay, 95. That was 25 years ago. Yeah. It's all people in their 20s. And now this guy that's a 19-year-old. Victoria and I spoke of it thinking maybe it's because they're taking their lives away, and it's the time, the way time is perceived to us with less time. Longer time, it seems like you've had more going on. But we talk like that. But then I think Robin asks, why is it that this is happening? And I go back to 95 when I thought about how they're taking the beating, the spankings, the corporal punishment away from the children, and they're just going to fill the prisons with them. Why is that even works that way? You're asking. But I can tell you, I'll go back to the nuns. When a nun screamed at you in Catholic school, you knew the next thing was the paddle. Whack! I've got one. Never used it. It takes 2 hands to use. Yeah, it's got holes. It was from the Columbian Squires. When they shut down after I was chief squire, I still had the paddle that we scared people with. It has holes drilled in it, and it's got the Columbian Squires little sticker on it. It's painted black. The holes are drilled in it so that it goes faster. The wind blows through it. It's aerodynamics. You got to use this stuff. But so the next thing after they scream was the paddle. And so when they started screaming, you shut the fuck up. And that's my dad. He's still a screamer. He gets irate. And you say, come on, old man. You don't do that. But he doesn't pull out his belt. But the thing is, you know that when he's screaming, he means it. You've got people in the world today that are still screaming at people and thinking it makes a difference. What do? They're like, I'll just go to HR. You know, even for the screaming. They're not afraid of the screaming. If they were afraid of the screaming because of what was coming next, they wouldn't go to HR because they'd get it even harder the next time. You take a screamer in a store, unless they're spanking their kid, that screaming is just a lot of screaming that's disrupting. Or we need to learn to be able to talk to the kids at their level of understanding. And that grows every day. You think, how the hell am I supposed to know how to do that? I didn't have any child psychology classes. Well, you start thinking like you normally would and trying to keep up. Keep trying to keep up with their intelligence as it grows. They may already be smarter than you. You don't have to worry about outsmarting a kid, getting down to their level. You'd be surprised at how much you're on their level. But that's it. We need to find another way of talking if we're not going to be using the most effective way that's most readily available to the large portion of the human race. We need to be able to start talking to them, because the screaming isn't making a difference. If they don't fear what's coming next, then the screaming is just a screaming. I would get Jim Force screaming. He knew he was too old to beat me up. So I would get him screaming so much and just keep him going. And the other guy on the job site's going, don't piss him off, Judas. And I'd say, and I'd get him going so much that when he was done, he would have to sit by the side of his truck and breathe for about 5 minutes to get his breath back. And I was trying to give him a heart attack. I thought, how else to know if CPR really works? They've got all these stories about it, but I've never done it. I mean, how do you expect me to believe that some rich people are eating babies? They've never invited me to dinner.